Where's the camera lens? Is it there? It's there. This is the first time I'm using this setup. I bought one of these USB light things. I'll show you. It's a USB light, if I can get it on in focus. So the phone goes there and the light is there, and switch this off so I can show you. It's just like that. It's very good, it's very simple. A lot of people are doing it now, and it's plugged into there, and you just switch it on and it gives it a studio quality look. There we go. I think that's the same as before. Yeah, it is. Okay, I did that pretty well. I wanted to start off the video naturally like that because, you know, natural things are connected to what's godly. I'll be putting this on. This is a jacket symbolic of hope. And if you guys have read my book, it's a testimony book. You'll know how real that is, but I'll share what that is at the end of the video. This video might be very long, maybe 30 minutes or so plus, but it's a video which for many years I've wanted to do but not had I didn't feel it was time to do such a video. But I wanted to do it today because it's true and it might help people, just in the same way I've always done videos. I started YouTube when I was 18 years old. I am now 27 years old. I don't look it, it doesn't matter. I would say that's Asian genes, but at the same time I would also say it's perhaps to do with spirit. Normally when people embody spirit and are whole or more holy, there's a sense of kind of purity in that, and, you know, youth in that. But that's a whole nother thing. I don't want to trail off too much. I wanted to share my experience with demons, my experience with ghosts, my experience with angels, and my experience with God. Now, there was a time that I thought all of those things were a load of crap. Religious, mumbo-jumbo crap. And for many years, I was always open, but I thought to myself, well, somebody is telling me this in church, how will I know unless I have an experience? But I was open to it. You know, seek and you shall find, ask and you shall receive, as they say. But I never thought it could be real. And sharing this is my experience of those things, and it's up to you whether you want to accept that or not. Now, already for a lot of people clicking on this video, you're going to come in already with thoughts and prejudgments before even listening. I would say to you, just even before starting, cast all of those aside. This is not going to be a typical stereotype. It's not going to be a stereotypical praise the Lord, hallelujah kind of video. I'm not like that. And I'm not going against people who are like that, but I'm just saying, when people have an experience with God, everyone is unique, everyone is individual, everyone is different. It doesn't need to be funneled into a stereotype. You know, because all of us are different, therefore all of us will have a different understanding of how it is. But just like you, there was a time where I used to think, oh God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, praise the Lord, hallelujah, it's all religious crap, it's fairy tales. Well, something is an idea until you have an experience. You can be at school and study for your whole life and even go to college and learn about horse riding, for example, but to actually get on a horse is a completely different experience. There is institution and there is experience. And the thing about religion is it's very institutionalized, but there's no experience to know if it's true. So people know it here, but they don't know it as a, you know, as an experience, as a heartfelt thing, as something that happens to you to know it is more than just going to church, and it's more than just the book. And even when I say that, there will be a lot of people will go, which will say, oh, well, Bible, oh, religion, oh, there are so many different types. I'm also a person, like you might be saying, I'm also a person of New Age. And that might be true, but I was as well. You know, I was somebody that was open to religion as well, but not sure what is really true and what it could possibly be in the highest sense. So when I say and I share all of these things, don't straight away think, oh well, he's going to try and convert me. I'm just here to share an experience. It's up to you whether to accept that or not, but all I will say is be open. Because sometimes if you think that you know everything, that's pride in itself. We are imperfect human beings, and there are a lot of people who think that they are connected to their higher self, who think that with the law of attraction I can bring anything into my existence. A lot of people who don't know who they are, therefore they hold on to an ego of themselves. And also people who think that this is my life, therefore I'm in control of my life, and it is all coming from me. It's control, it's pride, it's ego, and ironically, you have influence over things in your life, but you don't control everything. Look at the reality of the situation. There's lots of people who believe that, some people even believe that they're God. But the reality is, are you in control of the weather? You go outside, you want it to be sunny and it's raining. Are you in control? People drop their phones on the floor by accident. If you were in control of everything, you'd be so perfect you wouldn't drop the phone, or you wouldn't drop your knife and fork on the floor, or you wouldn't leave your keys behind, or you wouldn't lose things, or leave your wallet on the bus, for example. I mean, sometimes knowledge and sometimes ideas and sometimes things in the mind can make you think things that aren't necessarily real. You can think that you are your higher self, or connected to your higher self, or even think you're God, or even think you're an alien, as some people do. And when you're in New Age and not really sure what is true, you believe that because you only know what you know until you have an experience to know more. That's why, as much as a lot of people think they know everything, you only know as much as you know, and that's already a box until you have an experience, and that box gets wider, and then you have an experience and that box gets wider. So ultimately you don't know anything, because every year you learn something new. So even that idea and that thought, and people who do coaching and things like that, that in itself is a fallacy, because the reality is you only know what you know now. So you ultimately don't know anything, because next year you'll know more. And sometimes you can know everything from yourself, but you need an experience outside of yourself to learn something more. That comes from an experience that you're not in control of. It can come from meeting a new person. It can come from a freak accident. It can come from anything, but it's something outside. But a lot of people say, oh, I was in control of this. This is my higher self. I attracted this. If you attracted it, why did it surprise you? If you attracted it, why was it something that you weren't in control of? Perhaps it's life, perhaps it's something much more. And this is what this video is going to look on, and it will be a very long video, but that's already the introduction. If you are already coming here going, what's he talking about? I don't understand this. This is weird. This is strange. And having all these preconceptions, dislike the video, or unsubscribe from me, or leave a horrible comment. I give you permission, because you have the free will to do that. But also at the same time, I know reverse psychology, so because I've told you what to do, you're less likely going to do it, because a lot of you who are like that are childish, and you don't want to hear something more than yourself because you think you know everything. To do that, I don't mind, and it doesn't affect me, because I've already given you permission to do that. So ironically, you have less chance of actually doing that, and maybe you might listen because maybe what I'm telling you is true, as crazy as it might be. Something to consider. When I was very young, I was always open to the idea that maybe God was real, but without any evidence or experience, how would you know? And I think a lot of people have that. I went to church when I was young. I was baptized Catholic, and I went to a church in Exmouth where I grew up. I think maybe I was less than 5 years old, that was for sure. But every time I went to church, the priest would speak from his head and not from his heart. So every time I heard the Bible, it didn't connect, because he's saying, speaking from here, in the beginning is the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So it's coming from a place which isn't embodiment. It's coming from a place which is mental, institutionalized, lack of experience. And there are lots of people who do that in the world. There's a lot of people who do that in government. There's a lot of people who do that on YouTube, where they know it here, but they don't embody it or know it as an experience. So they will say it to you like, yeah, it's this, and this. It's so obvious, but there's no embodiment of that to know if it's true. Logically, yeah, it's probably true, but they don't embody it. But to have somebody embody it is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is God. You know, it's embodying, but you can't be like that. Or in the same way like riding a horse, you can't know that without experience. You can read for 4 years about how to ride a horse, but you get on the horse for the first time, no matter how much experience you have and how much knowledge you have, the horse can kick you off, because that's not something you're in control of, you know? Wisdom comes from experience. It's more than knowledge, you know? So we used to do grace at the table every night and for meal times, and it just got to the point that we didn't feel it, like me and my parents. And my father always said to me, well, he's a logical type. He always said to me that, you know, well, if God is real, it doesn't matter about you going to church. If he's everywhere and everything, therefore he knows you, so it doesn't matter. I'm not discouraging people to go to church or to go to religious buildings, but what I'm saying is that hit me in a way that kind of I agreed with that. I'm going to try and slipstream all of this so it's not too long. I may add some pictures and videos just to make it a bit more interesting, you know. Fast forward. So for most of my life, when I was at school, I had glimpses, and I had signs, and I had symbols come to me during my school days. I actually write them about it in my book. It's a testimony book, but it's also explaining how God can be real in science, in everyday things, and just through my experiences, like what I'm sharing with you today. The book is called Amor Vincit Omnia, Love Conquers All, by Corthan Tortosa. Now you can get this book on Amazon.com, Amazon.co.uk. I'm currently working on an audio book, which I will do one day, so in the right time. But yeah, I'll add a link at the end of this video. But so for most of my life I was open to different religions. We even had a religious education teacher who taught us many different religions, and I mentioned those religions in the book. And I thought to myself, well, if God is real, he or it or whatever it is will come to me, because I'm open to receive it. And I'm not boxing myself into Christianity. I'm not boxing myself into this religion, that religion, whatever. I don't know. Therefore, I'm open to whatever it is, you know? And I feel for a lot of people that's where they are, and I think that's the best place to be, because you don't think that you know everything and you're not holding it in your hand and you're just allowing it to happen. And that's the best thing to do, because you don't have that pride and that ego blocking more than yourself to come in to expand your consciousness, to expand yourself. Consciousness is a very new agey word, but I used to be in that, that's why I say it. Spirit is another way. Blindness, lifting the blindness. So I had lots of images and lots of things coming to me. I had the Fibonacci sequence, which is the movement of light, which moves in a spiral. And when light moves in a spiral upwards, it moves in the shape of the number 9. And when it moves backwards, it moves in the shape of the number 6. So in England, we have the salvation number, which is 999, which is the equivalent to 911 in USA. But moving backwards, it's the 666, which is considered the demonic number, as a lot of people know. But I found that interesting that that was linked to quantum physics, and that was something that was... There was a link there that was more than just me thinking that. They correlated with each other, that there was something spiritual and something scientific. And, if it's very real, all of those things will connect, just like string theory. They will all be attached because it's all part of the same thing. It got to the point that more and more of that stuff started coming in. I learned about laminin protein, how it's a protein that holds the body together. And it's in the shape of the cross. The actual molecular structure is in the shape of the cross, and it heals your skin, and it heals your body, and without that you would die, because the second you get a cut, you would keep bleeding, and you wouldn't be healed. So there were lots of reoccurrences like that, where I was like, okay, well, maybe it's just coincidence, That's what you say to yourself, because you're limited by your own understanding. So you'll have a lot of coincidences until you start seeing maybe it's not coincidence. But there was a time I was like that, and there will be other people who will be like that also. I also found that with magnetism and with quantum physics, how when you learn in school, with iron filings and a magnet with the north and the south, it creates a cross shape. Interestingly enough, in the center of the galaxy, there is also a magnetic cross holding everything together. There isn't a lot of articles out about it, but I did find one or two which actually said that in the same way that magnetic field is on Earth and can be shown with the north and south and with a magnet and iron filings, that's also happening in the universe, in a universal sense, that the very center of the universe is being held together by a cross. Because in the same way that those magnetic forces and magnetic fields are happening with our bodies, in this electrical universe, but we can't see it, just like spiritual things, we can't see it, but ultraviolet, infrared, electromagnetic spectrum and all of that is happening. You just can't see it because it's higher dimensional than the third dimension. In the same way that's happening on a bigger scale, that the actual universe the center of the universe is held together with a force which is a magnetic force in the shape of a cross. So again, coming back to a cross, it's just coincidence, But these were the things which I started to see when I was 18, and I was open to it but I don't like religion, so I'm not going to say it's biblical, but I can see, there is scientific things to hint towards. Maybe it's something like that. So this is when I started to have spiritual experiences that go beyond science, and this is the part where a lot of you may say, oh, it's crap, or I don't believe it. Well, that's fine, but you haven't had those experiences to know if that's real. And again, as I said before, leave a horrible comment, dislike the video, unsubscribe from me, laugh at me, I don't care. That's a reflection of you more it is than of me, because at the end of the day, I'm not judging you, but you're judging me. I give you permission to do it. I told you to do it. Oh, you don't like being told what to do? Okay, maybe you won't do it. Or maybe you'll just sit and listen, and maybe this video might help, you know? I'm trying to do these in 10-minute sections, so at least people can absorb it in chapters or watch it as one whole video if you feel guided to. It's up to you. This is branded, but I made sure that the brand wasn't shown. Because it's a bottle at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what brand it is. You know, this very materialistic way of thinking. One last thing I wanted to say that I wrote in the book as well. A lot of people think that the Big Bang is something that is just scientific and just happened, and I'm not going to be here to debate with you, but I'm going to be here to give a suggestion and an idea and something to consider, and as long as you're open to it, it might help with things. People say that everything came from the Big Bang, and some people even go as far to say that there was nothing and then there was something. That still points towards a creator, and in a scientific sense it's a logical fallacy if you really think about it, because okay, again, not here to debate but just here to make you think. If there was nothing, nothing is nothing. Nothing exists. It's just darkness. And then suddenly there were gases which formed, collided and exploded and made the universe. How can something be made from nothing if nothing is there? There has to be something already in order for those gases to form, explode and be created. Now in quantum physics they say that there are 12 dimensions. So let's say, for example, if something in a high dimension came down, a gas or God, possibly, and God maybe is 12th dimensional. If life can exist in the first dimension, you know, with bacteria, microorganisms and things like that, and it can exist in the second and us in the third, who's to say that those things can't exist in the fourth? Heavenly things, and all the way up to 12, which could possibly be God. Here's an example. If you're in a higher dimension, you can look down onto the lower dimensions, okay? Very simple. Here's an example. I write this in the book. This is a dot on the piece of paper. The dot is one-dimensional. The piece of paper is two-dimensional. I am three-dimensional. I am a third-dimensional being looking down into a second-dimensional plane with a first-dimensional dot. In the same way, maybe God can do that, if God exists. You see? So, if we were in the third dimension and nothing existed, what happens if something from the fourth or higher dimension came in and triggered that to happen? Because something had to be, that energy had to be input, you know, simple physics, energy has to be input into it in order for there to be a reaction. And so if there was nothing in the first place, something still has to come in outside of it to trigger that. Again, link back to people who think, there is nothing more than me, there is only me, I'm in a box. Squares, you know? But this whole video is to expand your thinking. So that's something to consider as well. Because just with that simple experiment, yeah, maybe it's like that there are dimensions higher than you as well. And in the same way, you can look down onto a piece of paper. What happens if something higher than you, that isn't you, because you don't control the weather and you don't control everything, is looking down onto you? Scary thought, isn't it? But a lot of people want to be in control, therefore they're not even open to something more. Well, you've always never been in control. You've had influence of your own self and things nearby, but you're not in control of the weather, so still it's a logical fallacy. It doesn't make sense. You're not in control of the weather. There's many things to say you're not in control. But people want to be in control because they're scared, you know. I'm not judging you, but I used to be like that, but things to think about, you know. When I was 18, I was in the boarding house. Actually, probably maybe a bit younger than 18. I went to Wellington School in England. I stayed in Dark's house. I probably was about 12 now, thinking about it. It doesn't matter, but Dark's house used to be a hospital. And one day I was coming home from prep. It was like homework for like posh kids. I wouldn't consider myself posh. I went to a fairly decent boarding school. It's typical British. And as I opened the door of Dark's house, because it used to be a hospital, I saw a white light in the center of the room in the darkness, and then disappeared, and it left a cold trail behind it, and I got goosebumps. And because I got goosebumps, that was a spiritual reaction in the physical. My physical body was reacting to something spiritually that didn't make sense. And this was on a hot summer's night, that there was a cold trail in the room. I had to go back to get my pencil case because I needed it for homework, and I just thought to myself, my pencil case is on the other side of the room, I need to go get it, and I've just seen that. Maybe spiritual things are real. And I went, I just ran, I bolted, and I just got it, and I ran out, and I just said, if there is anyone there, thank you for not being bad or a poltergeist, or thank you for being good. And I'm not sure if I'm just speaking to myself, but thank you. Just in case, you know? Because you hear stories about these things, and you watch movies about these things, and then when you have an experience, you don't know what to think. Your logical mind tries to rationalize it, but it makes no sense. So it opened me up to the possibility that in the same way we have the third dimension, and there's the electromagnetic spectrum, ultraviolet and infrared and spiritual things that we can't see, maybe that stuff's real. But that's something I had from experience, not something I read in a book, or not something that a person in church told me. You know? That's how you know, from experience, and by listening to people who have had experiences. That's why a lot of people who say, oh well, the Bible was written by men. Yeah, it was, but at the same time, they are accounts of spiritual things that happen to normal people, just like with what I'm sharing with the ghost. They are testimonies of experiences that don't make sense, but they are first-hand witnesses to those things. And the whole Bible is a collection of testimonies and experiences. So yes, it was written by men, but the thing is, are they telling the truth? I've just told you the truth of that ghost, but the thing is, a lot of people have the free will to believe that or not. The doorbell just went. People have the free will to believe that or not. And because of that, that's the thing to consider, that it's whether you believe it or not, when somebody shares an experience, it's truth, but it's up to you whether to accept it or not. I'm doing this in real time. I had to go get a package, and again, that's the truth. I just had to do that now. Interestingly, I wonder what part of this video and what words that I was saying when the doorbell went, because synchronicity and divine timing happens in that way, so we'll see. When did the doorbell ring, or did it come up on the camera? Who knows? But again, there's going to be many different types of personalities watching this, and many people who are mind and heart orientated, and there will be a lot of people judging it, don't care, don't mind. Your opinion isn't fact, but at the same time, when somebody is sharing an experience, it's something to consider, even if it sounds weird. Because what happens if one day you have an experience like that and you go, oh, maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe I am, you know? And just to clarify, I'm not sharing this to be like, I know everything, you know, believe what I say. It's more like, I had this experience, I'm sharing it with you, and maybe it will open things up for you and to question things more, that maybe those things are possibly real, you know? And I feel that if you're doing it from there, and you're not doing it from here, I think that says everything, because actions speak louder than words. Yeah, I'm just saying these things, but at the same time, you can see in my eyes and in my spirit and how the words are being said and in the actions that it's not a performance and an act. It's something maybe real. At the rate we're going, this is going to be 40 minutes, but again, you know, you can watch it in chapters or you can watch it in one go. So moving, fast forwarding on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some pictures and some videos in it as well to spice it up, maybe kind of make it like a movie. Because this is the kind of last video that I'm going to do like this for a very long time, I think. Fast forward, when I left Wellington School and I went to university, I graduated to Gloucestershire University. I was a landscape architect, which isn't gardening, by the way. And I have to say that because apparently it's a stereotype. In the same way people stereotype biblical things as religious, you know. It's so easy for people to stereotype, just like with me thinking, oh, praise the Lord, hallelujah. You know? And it's like that, it can be like that. But there's more to the stereotype, you know? But unfortunately the stereotype comes first because that's the more common thing that comes out of it. That's the collective common thing that comes out of that topic, which is why it's a stereotype. So, fast forward, when I was in college, I was more opened up to different religions, but still didn't know what was true. And I had a decent upbringing, I had decent parents, I had a good education, I had a comfortable life. I had loving parents and I had good things materially, but I always felt spiritually unfulfilled. And there's a lot of people who have even worse than that. And that is why I really do feel that spiritual enlightenment and spiritual wholeness, or to be holy, completeness, is a spiritual thing. That's why I do believe that a lot of celebrities are suffering, because they have everything materially, but they don't have themselves. And I did a video on this recently, and I speak about how so many people want to be followers and want to seek themselves outside, but the ironic thing is you'll never find yourself outside of yourself. People will say, I'm an engineer, this is me, or I'm a doctor, this is me, or I'm a celebrity, this is me. Or they cling to things and they say, I'm a starseed, I'm this, I'm my higher self, I'm an alien in some cases. But the ironic thing is, who were you before that? Who were you as a child? And a lot of the times it comes down to, I don't know who I am. But people don't ask that question until they're 40 years old and already having a midlife crisis. And because you don't know who you are, you cling to egos, you cling to, this is me, I'm an engineer, this is all I am. Well, no, you were you before that, who are you? Yeah, and the answer will be, I don't know. I love Justin Bieber, I'm a follower of Justin Bieber, Justin is everything I am. Yeah, but that's not everything you are. Who were you before that? I don't know. And that understanding comes from asking yourself and looking within, you know, but it also comes from, maybe it's something higher as well to help you, something outside to come in to say, here's a mirror, look at that, that's you. Just like me, I'm acting as that mirror for you to look at yourself. Don't look at me, look at yourself. And sometimes people don't like what they see, that's why they wear masks and they act good. But the thing is, I'm not here to judge that, but I'm here to show that people do that, and a lot of people know that. You've got narcissists who do that in a bad way, sociopaths, people with BPD, and I would highly suggest look at borderline personality disorder. If you don't know who you are, and you're confused with who you are, and you feel that kind of, there's a lack of something within, I would say look at that. It is curable, and there is therapy for it. In a lot of cases, the reason why people aren't open to that kind of stuff is because of childhood trauma, either from parents or either from bad experiences. I've done counselling in the background from age 18 to age 27, online, on Facebook, absolutely free, because I wanted to help people. And I love people. And I wanted people to be saved, and I wanted people to feel that same happiness that I got growing up. You know? I met suicidal people, narcissistic people, sociopathic people, people with BPD, you know? The whole shebang, whole spectrum of all of these things. And the common thing is trauma, either from parents or a bad experience, and a lack of connection to the inner child and acceptance within themselves and connection to something more. But I'll get on to that. But I wanted to share that as an aside. So I've got about 5 minutes left of this chapter, so fast forward. This video will always be here to re-watch it and absorb new information, so it's coming out of me, you know, and that's why I'm sharing it. Fast forward, when I was in university, I went into the New Age. I went into crystals, I went into meditation, I went into yoga, I went into the tarot cards, I went into incense. And going to college, being a human being that wanted to have a human experience, I experimented with smoking, you know, the typical kind of uni stuff which you would smoke, which isn't cigarettes, you can probably guess what that is. Drinking, and all sorts. But no matter what I did, from when I was young to this age now, even though I had everything and a good life, I still didn't have spiritual fulfillment and spiritual completeness in myself. And I didn't know what that was, so I seeked it in yoga, I seeked it in meditation, I seeked it in New Age. And even my uncle, his name is Corthan Tortosa, from the Philippines, he was a healer, and he guided me into the tarot cards, and I found that amazing because outside of the church, the New Age was the closest thing I had felt to anything spiritual, and the ghost, you know. So because of that, I seeked it more, because that was closer to the answer than the church and the priest speaking from his head ever said, whatever. And it's something I felt for the first time that connected with me, that it is real, but I can't see it. A bit like the wind, it's real, but you can't see it, you know. So I played with that stuff. I played with the tarot. I went to yoga classes. I did meditation, and no matter what I did, I even read Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, and I read lots of books like that. The Alchemist by Paul Coelho, The Life of Pi, all of that kind of stuff. But I still felt empty. No matter what I did, I still felt empty. And I felt that as much as those things were helping to broaden my horizons, I still felt empty. And I think for a lot of people in the New Age, they have that also. And it starts to be like, look at me, I'm so proud, I know everything, I'm enlightened. And you see people like that, where it's like a false white light, it's like a mask, it's like a performance. And when those things start to change you and you start to become something different, that's when to question, is this really good? Because I'm becoming someone I'm not. It starts to become a pride image thing, rather than like what I'm doing now. My experiences with something more has made me more myself, as it should, you know? But I'm not here to tell you what to do, I'm here to share that. I was at university for 4 years and I suffered constantly, and no matter how much I used the New Age, it didn't help me. And I think for a lot of people who are in that right now, you also feel the same, that no matter how deep you go into it, you're still not dealing with yourself, and you're distracting yourself, and you still don't know who you are. But what happens if there is a God, and because everything came from that, through the Big Bang, through something higher dimensional, making everything. Maybe it's in that. And maybe you need an outer experience of something real in that way to act as a mirror to see what you are in the big picture. You know? I'll get onto that in the next part. Goodness me, this is quite long. Now, I know that for a lot of people are part of different religions and different cultures, and many of you will be saying, well, who are you to say all of these things to me? And that response already is, this is who I am, how dare you say that to me? That's kind of like pride, something to consider. But I understand because who am I? But at the same time, I'm just sharing an experience and something for you to consider, you know? It's one of those things that whatever culture you're part of, whatever religion that you're part of, just be open, you know? And as long as you're open to more than your comfort zone, as long as you're open to more than what you know, there's always something to learn. And it will just come to you in a natural way. And sometimes it will be more than you expected, more than you ever knew, more than you thought. And if it's more than what you had before, that's an increase, isn't it? So that's what I would say to that. And I'm coming from a place of quantum physics. I'm not coming from a place of religion, because I completely left my religious institution. Notice I say institution. I left my religious institution because it was that. It put me in a box, and I wanted to know it in real life, in my everyday. Because if God is everything and made everything, if it exists, then it will be shown in my everyday, because everything is of it. And I can even take it a step further. If everything is the Word, in the beginning is the Word, look at it in a scientific way. What is a word? A word is a vibration. What are we made out of? Protons, electrons, neutrons. That's a trinity, isn't it? Length, width, height. That's a trinity, isn't it? Past, present, future. That's a trinity. Maybe there's loads of reoccurrences of the same thing. You know, symbolically and in actuality. But also taking it a step further, solid, liquid, gas, that's a trinity. And also, all of those are made of the same three parts: proton, electron, neutron. Proton, positive; electron, negative; neutron, neutral. You know? And all of those atoms have been vibrating since the Big Bang and still are today, and they've never stopped. If God's word holds everything together, maybe that's true. Because the seat you are sat on is made of vibrating matter. When you do a recording on your phone for a podcast or for music, that is a wave, that is a vibration. It does that. In the same way, these protons and electrons are doing that. Holding everything together, solid, liquid, gas, it's all the same, but just in different, some are spaced out, some are closer together, you know? So that's something to consider in a scientific approach. And notice I'm coming from the way of science rather than just reading it from the book. And the thing is that a lot of people read from the book, but the thing is, those are other people's experiences. Those are other people's experiences with the supernatural. What about you? And if you're not open to receive that, how can you even know? You know? So, these are things to consider as well. I would say that I know that this is an aside, but this is equally important. And again, whoever's going to watch these will watch them. And if you feel to share them, share them. And there will be a magnet in your spirit pulling you saying, share this to this person. And it's not something which is from here or from here, it's something which is like, it's a bit like Donnie Darko. It's something that's magnetic, that extends out of you, that you feel, I have to go. There will be moments in your life, and people say that that's the Holy Spirit, where there is a quantum pull, an invisible string to say, go to this person, go to this place, do this, it makes no logical sense, but just do it. And then normally when you do it, oh, we were looking for somebody like you. I'm glad that you joined us at this job, or thank you for sharing this with me. This is exactly what I needed. That's what happens when you listen to that. It's an unconscious pulling. So even when you watch this, maybe you'll watch part of it and never watch it again. It will still be what you need to hear. If you watch all of it, it will still be what you need to hear. Whether it's little or all of it, it will still be what you need to hear. And at the same time as well, if you feel to share it with people, that's still the right thing, because it's something which is guided beyond your understanding, and that's a leap of faith, and that's the unconscious spirit speaking to you, And that's something I would suggest. It's easy to say, you should do this. I'm not going to say that, because I'm not here to tell you what to do, because love doesn't control. Love is free, They say that love is like a bird in a cage. If you really love it, you won't keep it in a cage. You would leave the door open and it would fly away. And if it really is meant to be, it will come back. So love isn't controlling. But then again, you've got dominant and submissives, so that's a little bit more complicated, but I'm not here to judge. But what I mean to say is, even in situations like that, you're still you and they are still them, So, things to consider. Anyway, I'm going off topic. I don't want to get into those kind of topics, or not here anyway. But just in a similar way, celebrities, people on the news, even YouTubers like myself, whoever they are, just because somebody's popular, beautiful, handsome, charismatic, funny, that doesn't mean they're a good person. And that's something that you should always say to yourself, that I have people who I follow, who have millions of subscribers, and good for them. But the thing is, people can wear a mask. That's why you've got narcissists and sociopaths and people with BPD. And you can see it in their eyes. You can see it projecting out of them. Some of them are genuine, but some are not. Some are just... And deep down, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That a person's spirit projects out of them. It's nothing that... You can put on a smiling face like that. That doesn't mean they're good. And a lot of people fall for it because this person made me laugh, this person's funny, this person's beautiful. I like them because they made me feel good. Well, drugs can make you feel good. That doesn't mean it's good for you. Just because something or somebody makes you feel good doesn't mean it is good for you. And on top of that, question, is this person good or not? Because somebody can be very charming and have millions of subscribers, and they could have murdered somebody. They could be a murderer. What matters is not what they present. What matters is who they are. And we live in a society now which is so image, Facebook, face, so image-orientated and ego-orientated that people don't see the inner spirit. And you can fall into traps because you're following sociopaths and narcissists. Question people. Don't be a blind sheep because you might be following somebody that is secretly awful and wearing a mask, all because they're charismatic and they make you laugh. A murderer can do that. That's why some murderers are so cunning, because they lure you in with charm and then think. It is about the spirit, not about what people present, because people with masks, they can lie. They can lie. So I'm sure this is the interesting part. This will be the interesting section. I had an experience with a demon, and I had an experience with God. And when I share these things with you, I'm not advocating these things to you, but I'm sharing these things with you. And if you want to take a risk, and you want to possibly even get yourself killed, that is up to you. And even if people do those things, because people have the free will to do whatever, I never once ever advocated for you to do that. I just shared that experience, and it's up to you with your free will to choose whether to explore that or not. So, as I've stated, I've not told you what to do. So the blame is not on me, because it's up to you, you know. It's just like with the Tide Pods, you know. It's like people do it, and then if you copy it, it's not the person's fault. It was your choice to copy it and get yourself killed. So, when I was 22 years old, 5 years ago, I had an experience with a demon. I won't tell you how I did it, and there's going to be people who are connected to the darkness, which will be like, oh, I'm interested. Well, if you're interested and you're going to play with that stuff, this could possibly kill you, so it's up to you. I summoned a demon on Halloween. I watched a lot of Hollywood horror stories thinking that's fairy tales, just like God, just like the Bible, it's all fairy tales. I played with the tarot cards on Halloween, and I didn't do any ritual or anything like that, but I had enough in me spiritually, which was given by something, to single-handedly bring that in, you know, asking how real it was. I write that in the book, so that should be a tease for the book, because it is real. Amor vincit omnia, love conquers all, Corthan Tortosa beardo. That's my little plug there. When something came, I never thought it would, and it told me straight away its name. It said it was a fallen angel, a demon, and it seemed like an alien, but it wasn't, and it was spiritual, just like the horror movies. And I could see it in my mind's eye, but physically I was getting goosebumps and the room went cold, so I knew it was something that I couldn't see. And it straight away told me that it was the devil's second in command. Now that already tells you there's a rank system. It already tells you that there's a hierarchy. And it told me its name. I won't say its name, you do the research. In the biblical times, it's the first two letters of its name begin with B, the letter B and A. And in more modern times, it begins with the letter B and the letter E. And it's not the devil, but it's the devil's second in command. And even me saying that, a lot of people will go, I'm going to click off the video. Do it. Do it. Carrying on. It was lying constantly. And it told me that my parents didn't love me. It told me that my friends didn't care, that I was all alone, there was nothing I can do. And it started to desaturate the world that I was in. And I felt like I was in Silent Hill. And it said that it had transported me into a dimension with no time and no space. And it pointed to a clock which wasn't ticking because we forgot to replace the batteries, but it was lying and said, well, this clock isn't ticking, therefore I stopped time. And I thought to myself, I was under the influence at this time. I write that in the book. But I'd been under the influence in a meditation, positive, controlled environment, but because I invoke something, I was not in control. And it was saying things that I would never say to myself, which is why it made me think this is not me, it's something else other than me, because I would never say these things to myself, even at my worst. And it was convincing me that it was me, but it wasn't. And I knew it because I would never say those things, even at my worst and darkest. So it said that you are separate from everything, you're disconnected from everything, you are alien. It didn't say I was an alien, but it said you are alien. And the word alien, a lot of people think UFO, and that's why they love, some people call themselves alien. But if you look at the word alien, because words have meaning and words have power, the definition of alien means to be separate. And he said, you are alien, not you are a alien, you are alien, you are separate. That's why a lot of people, I think, who believe they're aliens or UFOs are actually just disconnected from their true self and reality, and it's an idea. And he was putting forth this idea into my mind and saying, I've stopped time and you're in a dimension with no time. And I was in that place, which what felt like 10 years, and it was just like Silent Hill. Everything, the colours were desaturated, there felt like no time and space. I went to my flatmates in my uni house, knocked on the door, and every time I screamed at the top of my voice, the voice would leave me and be sucked away into the wind like a whisper. And he said, they can't hear you. And there was a part of me that wondered if I was really in a different place. Every time I was under the influence before, I was grounded and in control and knew I was in reality physically, but in my mind's eye I was somewhere spiritual. In this case, I didn't feel I was in the same place. So there's a part of me that wonders if I was in a different place, or there's another part of me that thinks he influenced me and lied so much that he made me believe that. But the colours were desaturated. And as much as I screamed to my friends at the top of my voice, they didn't hear me, and even listening to the door, it didn't feel like there was any presence behind the door. So that's something that I will never know, if I was really put into a different place. But it was, that in itself felt like hell, because I was in between worlds, and there was just no hope. And the entire time it was laughing and saying, there's nothing you can do. So it kept lying, and the more it kept lying, I was spinning, and it felt like I was spiraling down, you know, like spiraling depression. But I can see this entity talking to me that's not me, and I was thinking to myself, maybe people with depression have this, but they can't see it in that way. Because how can you see something spiritual? It's just like the wind, it's not there, you can't see it, but you're having these voices coming into your head. That's not your voice. And I didn't believe it, and I said, I'll get out of this. I used to lucid dream when I was young, so I said to myself, well, I can just get out of this because I know how to escape different states and different dream states. I write this in the book. And it got to the point that lie after lie after lie, and I started just to get tired and weak. And it lied and it lied, and it said, your parents don't love you, your parents can't help you, and there's nothing you can do. And it told me the very final lie, and because I understand psychology and reverse psychology, the final lie is the biggest truth, the first is last. So it said, and out of all of these things, God cannot save you. Now ironically, in the Bible, in Hebrew, the name Jesus, or Jesus, Yeshua, means God saves. So the very fact he said that God can't save you, it's the biggest lie, it's also the biggest truth. And he got his finger, stuck it into my third eye, and said, you wanted to know how real good and evil were? And I just felt pain, and I got like an episode of epilepsy, and all of these images, the first time I fell over, the first time my parents shouted at me, the first time a girl dumped me, all the most painful moments in my life were playing like a movie, one after the other, and I was recalling them as if I was there. And it was just pain, 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 pain. And I felt this energy surge out of me and fly away, and it looked like a bird, but it was quantum. And I said to myself, this is what happened to Christ on the cross. And then I did that. I covered my mouth because my unconscious spoke, And my conscious mind was like, what the hell? What the heck? How do I know that? And I covered my mouth and I thought to myself, the spirit's left me because the darkness has persuaded me enough to put me into a low vibration. So after that, I had a vision where I was a candle in a giant cave of darkness, and the darkness was trying to put me out. And I was within the five pentagram star, and I had 5 different cave entrances at the point of the star, and they were completely empty. And I was staring into the void, and people in poetry say that the void is very poetic and real. It's not when you're there. You have no idea how empty the darkness is. Nothing stares back at you. There's no hope. But it taught me something when I was in that darkness, that even though I'm staring at nothing and nothing is staring back at me, I am still something to stare at nothing. And that was enough. And as much as people say that they're nothing and that they're trash, the very fact that you are something to stare at nothing means you're still something compared to the nothing. You look at nothing and nothing reflects nothing back at you. There's no reflection. But the thing is, you are still something to look at it. So you're not darkness, you're not nothing, you're not trash. Logically. And then it felt like this huge weight, and it was trying to crush me, and it was trying to put me out, and I don't know if it was trying to possess me or if it was trying to kill me, but I said, even if you take everything away, I still love myself, and you can never take that away from me. And the thing with magic is that it works with rules. I know a bit from New Age. I never did it, but I know like the basic. You have to submit for it to control you. Like writing a contract in Hollywood. You have to submit and sign yourself away and accept it for it to take you over. That's why if people are being cursed, if people have nightmares and all of these things, you have the free will to say, no thanks. And it has no power over you. But the second you give in to the drama, the second you give in to what it's trying to do, it takes you over. But if you literally say, nah, no thanks, can't do anything, because it works by rules that if you accept it, it will happen. You know? So I said no. I'm still me and I still love myself. So whatever you do, you can't do anything. And it was so, the devil second was so angry. I'm glad it wasn't the bad guy himself. And I said, God, please save me. And I broke out of it. And I had clarity, and I was back in the room, and everything was the right color saturation. And I ran towards the door, and I unconsciously hit my head 4 times against the door. We lived in a place called 22 Hungerford Street, and the number 22 as an angel number is a divine number. And the word hunger forward, hunger means to starve, forward means river, and something that you cross over into the spiritual plane. So it's also symbolic as well as real, physically. I seek that spiritual, I was hungry for that spiritual fulfillment, and I crossed over the river, over to the other side. And it almost, I don't know, I don't want to think about it. So it left a mark on my forehead in the shape of a cross, but like that, and there was a bloody P. And my name is Corthan, which is Viking, and it means to conquer. And ironically, the cross and the letter P was on the top of my head, bleeding, after hitting the door, after waking up. And it was right in where my third eye was, where it stuck its finger. So, symbolic, synchronized, all of that. And there was this huge scream that was like a banshee scream came out of my voice, and my friends came down and said, what happened? It's like it's like a demon. You have a demon or something. And I said, and I was covering my mouth because the scream was coming out of me. And I said, please call the hospital. So they called the hospital reluctantly, and I feel so sorry for them. And if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was blind. I didn't know that that was going to happen. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I mean, who would think that any of that stuff is real? That's why I'm sharing it with you. I was in hospital, and I just felt empty, because I felt like a shell. I felt like a husk, because this spirit flew out of me before it tried to take me over or do worse. And I was in hospital feeling empty, and the diagnosis was I had an epileptic fit. I know it was a spiritual attack, but because you're doing that, they don't see it as possession, they see it as an epileptic fit. And I've had trauma, and I was under the influence and all of that kind of stuff. But ironically, I knew what it was. Because I invoked it, they never would have believed me. And also on top of that, there's no history of epilepsy in our family. So, just something to consider. But it got to the point that the doctors left me. They said that your parents are going to come in 5 to 10 minutes. And my mum is a nurse, and ironically, I was more scared of seeing her than I did with the demon. Because she's my mum and she's seen people die in hospital. So that, for me, was more real and more scary than being face to face with the demon. Poetic, huh? I'm trying to make light of the situation and make it a bit more humorous. So the doctors drew the curtain and said they'll be here in 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Sorry. Getting teary. And I said, God, if you're real, please save me. And in the top right corner of the window, there was a light coming from the sun, and there was a sunbeam hit me directly in the heart. And suddenly, this quantum being was looking down on me from the 12th dimension. And a lot of people won't like this, but this is still true. Completely semi-transparent, quantum, no face, no eyes, no mouth, no nothing. Perfect body, masculine, perfect body, masculine voice, deep tone of voice. A bit like Mufasa from The Lion King, that kind of deep fatherly tone, arms folded, and he said, so you wanted to know how real good and evil were? And I went, and my whole life I was seeking something omnipotent, but it was never my choice to decide when that happened. It was his choice. And I can feel this holy quantum light on top of me, and it was seeing every part of me, my cells, the protons and electrons in my clothes. It was looking at my DNA, my enzymes, my blood. I was completely naked. Because it's quantum, it can actually, because it's higher dimensional, it can go through you, and it's a light that covers every part of your mind, body, spirit, emotion, and even down to the atoms in your skin and the protons and electrons in your clothes. It can see everything. And all of my body, my atoms, my protons, electrons, and my antimatter spirit that's inside was vibrating like, so I knew it could see everything because it was quantum. And there was a voice that came out of my mouth unconsciously, and I was trying to think logically, what should I say? But my spirit answered, Dad. That dad, not my physical dad. Dad, I am so sorry. I had no idea. Arms folded, like a concerned father seeing his child almost get possessed or worse. And I said, I had no idea. Okay, I'm getting goosebumps. They say that's the Holy Spirit, because when the word is true, as crazy as that is, maybe it's true. And he said to me this, I am not the God of religion, but I am the God of Israel, the God of the Bible, and I am the God of creation. I'm going to leave this on a cliffhanger and go and do this on the next part of the video. But you don't know something is real until you experience it. And until then it's all fairy tales. And I don't think many people could have an experience like that. But it will still come to you in a way that you understand. Like with dreams and with signs and with people. If you're watching this far and you still haven't gone away, kudos to you. And as a human being, you can't comprehend looking at something 12th dimensional. Your brain can't comprehend it. And he chose an anthropomorphic human-like shape, but he isn't of form. He's beyond time and space. He's outside the space-time continuum. His quantum is pretty much the best way I can describe him. Not like an old man looking down from the clouds, like the typical cliche classical paintings, but more so a quantum being without form. And fatherly, but there was like feminine energy within it, but mostly it was predominantly masculine, you know. And again, people won't like that, but I have to say that. And also, it was connected in a triangle, and there were two others. There was the Holy Spirit, the bird, the dove, the one that left me, and also Christ, which is a more grounded version, but it was still very abstract and spiritual, but I felt three presences. But it was the same thing, it was all one, but split into three, but it's all the same. It's quantum, so it's really hard to explain, but just like solid, liquid, gas, past, present, future, length, width, height, proton, electron, neutron, there is something about threes and trinities in that sense that echo all the way up. So I just have to share that. But as a human being, my first thought was very human, which was, don't think of anything bad, don't think of anything bad, don't think of anything bad. Because here I am, I'm a 22-year-old typical guy. I have thoughts, I look at pictures and watch things, you know, like as a typical 22-year-old would 5 years ago. And, you know, I've done things, I've seen things, I'm smelling of a herb. You can probably guess what herb that is. I have alcohol in my system. I've just been stupid, playing with the darkness. And he said, how could you be so foolish to play with the darkness? You could have got yourself killed. And I was just silent, and I said, I answered back, but I would never answer back otherwise, because it's just, you can see everything. But I answered back because even though I was stupid, I was innocently stupid. So you can be stupid and still innocent, because I had no idea that would happen. I had no idea he was real. I had no idea God was real. I had no idea demons were real. So I was still innocent. But like a scientist, you do an experiment and you find out what's true. And this is why I share this story, so that you don't have to risk your life doing something stupid. And maybe it's real. So I said to him, I didn't know. And now I know. And I'm so sorry, and please forgive me. And I just want to feel alive again. I don't want to feel like a husk or a shell anymore. And I had this energy surge into me again, which was the Holy Spirit. But it was quantum, it was like a light, you know? It was like electricity. It's not electricity, but you get what I mean. It's the best way I can describe it. I just went in and I felt alive again, and not a shell or a husk. And I just said, thank you for saving me. And I said, I will never play with the darkness again. And he told me, because here I was, sorry I'm itching my nose a lot, I've got allergies, it's summer. It's not because of coronavirus. said to me, you have plans to go to Canada after you graduate, but you need to go to the Philippines and you need to stay there, and I will provide everything and everything will be fine. And one day your family will be together and you'll help a lot of people. But it's him, you know. And he said it to me that I have already given these things to you. I have already given you everything. And he said it in such a way where he was outside time and space to say, if you have faith and you go down this route, even though it doesn't make any sense, it will come. That it was like he was showing me a quantum window into the future, that if you do these things, but you have the free will to not do it, but if you do these things and you have faith, you will not only help a lot of people, but all the things that you sacrificed will come back and better. And it's a risk. But he showed it to me, I could feel in his words it was true. A quantum being talking about a place in at a certain time, in a certain space, you know, like quantum time and space. He was showing me a place at this point in time in the future, at this place in the future, and one day it will come to pass. But I have to have faith. And I believed it because I could hear in his voice it was true. And I said, I will do it. And he said, by sacrificing everything, you'll get everything. And that goes for everyone. That by sacrificing your idea of your life, you get given more than you could possibly know, and better. Because sometimes the things that you want are not the things you need. And if it was up to me, if I had all the things that I wanted, including the relationships I wanted, I would be unhappy. Because my ego would be satisfied, but my spirit wouldn't be. And sometimes the things that you run from and you don't want, you end up getting in the most pure and holy way, with patience, you know. And I just said thank you. And I asked him a question. And I write this in the book. I asked him another question, but I would just say the bigger one, because like whenever does anyone have an experience like that? And I will say this to you now, I don't think any different of myself. And maybe that's why it happened. Because the second I think I'm anything, I lose who I am. For me, I'm just myself, and I just had an experience, and I'm sharing it with you, and I think that's the best thing that you can do. Because the second you put yourself on a pedestal, it becomes an ego, and the message is lost. So people might say or think things of me. I'm still me. I just had a really crazy experience. And I think that humbleness is so important, and that's another reason I'm sharing that today. Because otherwise, my brain will never comprehend what it saw. And it still does try today, and you can't comprehend something that's quantum. So I just accept it and get on with my life. And become enriched by it. And I asked him, why don't you speak to everybody like this? Imagine how many people you could save. And he gave me 2 answers. Very good answers. And this is for you guys, as it was for me. Does that teach faith? I went, no. And he said, do you think everybody could handle that? I'm getting goosebumps again. And I went, and then he did that. And I just said, thank you for saving me. And I said, I love you, bless you, glory be to you, forever and ever. Amen. And he smiled, he nodded, his arms still folded, very concerned. And then the light beam left my body and went back into the sun. Interestingly enough, I wonder if the sun is where they look down from, but that's a whole different thing. That's something to think about. And then a cloud covered the sun. And then after that, my mum and dad came into the room, and my earthly father straight away said, "What on earth have you been doing? You could have gotten yourself killed." And I laughed poetically and I said, "Somebody's already told me that." So I got the same message from my spiritual father as well as my earthly father, and I cried and I thought how poetic everything is. Everything being possibly that stuff. So I just wanted to say that was the main part of the story. Excuse me. I just had lunch. That was the main part of the story. What I'm going to say next is a bonus. The main message I wanted to share was that everything else is a bonus. If you don't want to watch anything else and it's already a lot, perhaps come back to it later, or you can watch or just keep going, it's up to you. It's going to be here when you need it, if you need it. Everything else is a bonus, and I have to share it because it's true, and it will extend the time, but at least you've watched what you needed to watch, so this is just extra. One thing I didn't actually mention was during this entire time I did YouTube videos, and at the time I went under the alias of Barracuda, which is a play on words from barracuda, which is a fish, and ironically by the band, with the song by the band called The Heart. So symbolic again without me knowing. And then I ended up writing a book called Love Conquers All, so again it's heart. And when I experienced God, it hit me in the heart. And have you also noticed that in a lot of churches it's normally a picture of Christ on his heart and then pointing to the sky like that? Perhaps it's something to do with that. Love and all of that stuff. But just an idea. Again, I'm scratching my nose. Allergies, Can't wait for the day for everything to be fine and perfect. Anyway, that's another story. Going off topic. So fast forward, I ended up going to the Philippines, and I write this in the book, and I went through so many trials, and I had to give up my life in England, and I never would have done that without that experience, because I had everything in England, but I was still unfulfilled, and I miss my culture to this day. I miss my friends, I miss the food, I miss the Western culture, I miss TV shows. I used to watch a lot of comedy shows. I miss it all, the climate, everything. But I knew that it would be worth it, and I had to do it. Because after that experience, I felt like an invisible string pulling me to go to this place. And my mind wanted to go to Canada, but my spirit was pulling me like a string, like a magnet, to say, go here. It doesn't make sense, but it will be fine. And I had such a conflict because my brain said one thing and my spirit said another. And my dad, being a logical person, said, that makes no logical sense. You're going to throw your life away. And I said, well, I'll actually be creating a place with landscape architecture in the Philippines, so I'm actually using it. But my mum, thankfully, she's more heart-orientated and spiritual, and she said, God is speaking to you. And he told me to stay there, and I did. And for 5 years, I've not been on YouTube that much for that reason. From age 22 to 27 now, on the 1st of August 2020, just so you can calculate my age in the future if you need to. I'm a Leo, by the way, and there was another. Christ was known as the lion, too. I'm not Christ, by the way. But it's just symbolic, I guess. And I wanted to save people, and I wanted to help people, which is also symbolic. I spent 5 years of my life sacrificing. I had everything and I gave it up and I went into a hard world. And I saw so much suffering and so much poverty, and I saw so much corruption and lies, but I also saw good people. People who were naturally connected to God. And also during that time, from age 22 to 27, I counseled people online, as I mentioned earlier, on Facebook, and with 16 personalities, especially people who are introverts, intuitives, feelers, and judges. And some of you will know what that is. And I just saw so many people who were in pain. And having experienced that love, I said to people, what I'll say to you now, so you feel it, because I felt it. God loves you. Jesus, Yeshua, loves you. The Holy Spirit loves you. And I love you. And that's it. And because they're quantum, they loved you before time and space existed. But I hope you feel that, and I hope you know that, and I hope if you take anything away and you stayed this long, as well as what I shared, that is the message. And I don't say that as some religious stereotype. I share that as somebody who had an experience that maybe it's true. And it utterly transformed me. And it can do the same for you. And maybe some of you might be annoyed and jealous and say, he's free, I can see it. It's for everyone. But you have to do the work, and you have to make the sacrifice, and you have to go against logic. And you have to listen to that invisible string, that magnetic pull, and go to that person or that place, or do that thing, or have that job. That is you're being pulled towards, not by your mind, not by your heart. You know? And I gave up everything, my life in England, and even my parents came because I couldn't do it without them. And my family is going to come back one day. But one of the reasons why I did it is because God said to me that one day He would show me who the right person was, that being my wife. And I will share this personally with you. I've never had a successful relationship. I've had a lot of pain. And I helped a lot of people out of that pain because I wanted to save them, because I used to read fairy tales and I used to want to be the knight in shining armor saving the princess. And unfortunately I attracted a lot of victims, and it destroyed me every time, but they are now in better places, and I've now broken out of that mechanism that I don't need to save anyone, because ultimately maybe Christ has already done that. And when you hear all of these things, they won't make sense now, but they'll make sense in months' time, years' time. You'll hear this today and you won't, some of you will understand it, some of you won't, but things make sense in time. Like a tree, it becomes stable as it grows and gets older, not in the moment. Because now I'm sharing this with you, just be open to have your own experiences that maybe it's true. And if somebody said to me God was quantum, I would have straight away been so much more open, rather than people saying if you don't go to church you'll go to hell, which says a lot about them, but not about the Bible and the truth, which is more than religion, as God said. I'm not the God of religion. And I know it's hard for some people listening to that because they've been in a culture or a religion, and even within Christianity, but institutionalized. But it's so much more than all of those things. And as long as you're open, that's the main thing. I will talk a bit more about my time here in the Philippines in the next part. I I've been on a journey for 5 years and it's coming full circle. I wished it took 3 years, but that's my own human ego wanting to control. And the project ended up taking 5 years. The project is called the Divine Sanctuary Tortosa Organic Farm. And you can see I've done a video on it on my channel. With this video, as you can see, I've put up a preview. But also you can visit our Facebook page as well. And everything's there. Yeah, so much more I can say. I'll say it in the next part. I've tried to keep all of this as concise as possible, and you see it's still a lot, but it doesn't matter. It needs to be said. I'm going to take another drink from this unbranded, it is branded, but it's on the other side, this bottle. It's raining now, and rain is supposed to be symbolic of a blessing if it's like pitter-pattering, if it's just a sprinkling. That's supposed to be a blessing, so. Good timing, I guess. Maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not a coincidence. I've been here for 5 years, and during that time, hopefully that dog doesn't keep barking. During my time here, I met a lot of different people from poor backgrounds, from rich backgrounds, and I also met family members. And what I really learned is it doesn't, and probably you've learned this too, and this is a wisdom nugget, I would say. It doesn't matter who a person is on the outside. Again, like I said with YouTubers and celebrities, what matters is who they are. Because you can have friends and family members that look good on the surface, but they stab you in the back, or they steal from you, or they gossip, or they lie. And what I've noticed is I look more at the people's actions and their spirit rather than what they say and what they do. Because actions speak louder than words. And a lot of you might already know that quote, but you have to be hurt by somebody that you trusted in order to realize maybe that quote's real or not. Most of the poetic wise quotes are true, but you haven't had an experience to know if it is. You just know it as, oh yeah, you know, actions speak louder than words. Yeah, that makes logical sense. It's probably true, but you haven't actually had an experience to know if it's true. That's where the wisdom comes in. And sometimes pain brings enlightenment as much as love brings enlightenment, you know? So I am now at the end of my 5 years, and I am now waiting on a promise which God has made to connect me with the right person. And it will just happen in His time, not my time. That's faith, that's patience. That is a healthy version of submission rather than the, oh, I'm your fan, make me your fan celebrity, or I'm a submissive, I'm going to submit to a dominant, own me. Or in a Hollywood or in a spiritual sense, I'm going to sign my life away and be controlled. You can also put that towards government, you know. Be careful of what you submit yourself to. But if you don't know who you are, it's much easier to be controlled. There's a lot of that going on right now. That's why I think the coronavirus is good, because it's making people go from that to that, who am I? Because it's a time of reflection, otherwise everyone's just being distracted by working all the time with their jobs. When I was in hospital, one thing I didn't say was that God told me that if I gave up everything and I came to the Philippines and I did this project, He would tell me who my wife was. I was there for 2 years. I came out of a relationship, and that person is now happily married. I'm happy for them. Very dramatic and painful at the time though, but they apologized, and that was a healing thing. And I will say, from a human point of view, if your ex can come back and say sorry and mean it, that's a good person. Because most exes would never do that. They're not strong enough. That's why they're exes. They're just lessons, you know. When I was at the farm, I had a lot of experience of betrayals from family members, and as I said, I learned it doesn't matter what people present, it matters who they are, and whether they're friends or family, it comes back to if they're a good person inside or not. And I had a lot of betrayals from family members, friends, workers who I trusted and I loved, and they weren't good-hearted people. Some of them were even Christians, but they go to church and wear it as a mask, and they're not good people. Do you see what I mean? It's not about going to the religious institution, it's being a good person. And ironically, even the prophets in Christ didn't go to church every Sunday. They were out doing things, traveling to different places and getting things done and helping people. So that's something to consider. But despite everything, so many things tried to affect the project, but in the end, those people left and new people came in, and what was lost was balanced. And in a quantum sense, energy just balances itself. When something is removed, it's then replaced. So energy itself isn't lost, you know. It just becomes something else. When you clear a bookshelf, you create space for something new to come in. So when you've had a painful relationship, somebody leaves, when you let go of something that you liked, it allows something new to come in to balance it. And I had an experience with God again when I was in Philippines 2 years later. At this age, I was already 24. And he told me the name of a person, and he said that this person is the right one, and you need to wake her up to me. She will blame you, she'll attack you, she'll curse you, she'll do all of these things, but one day she'll understand and everything will be fine. But because God said the one, I thought he meant the one that I would be with. So I'd never met this person before, and I said to God, this is the last person that I'd ever expect. But again, my dad ended up marrying my mum, and he never wanted to marry a Filipino woman, and she was a good version of the thing he didn't like, which was provided by God. So this woman was just like that. But ironically, it was a very poetic story, because she was Gothic, she was an atheist, she was a feminist, she was all about knowledge and believed that everything that she said and did was right and everyone else was wrong, and surrounded herself with people who told her what she wanted to hear. She also had borderline personality disorder, but I didn't know that until we broke up. So for 4 years, possibly, 4 years I think, but pain can sometimes distort time, so I say 4 years, but it might be less, it might be more, but it was painful and traumatic. And the entire time I was telling her my experiences and sharing my stories and experiences about God, she shouted at me, blamed me, said I was an awful person, and was just she was very reactive and very aggressive. And she said, here's the interesting thing. I think a lot of people who are in denial with God, and also if they're a woman and feminist, I think a lot of people think that God can't be a man, normally because of childhood trauma and pain, where normally the father was bad, or the father abandoned them, or they had an experience with somebody that they loved that was a man, therefore all men are bad, which isn't fair. It's like being bitten by a dog and saying all dogs are bad because I had one experience with a dog. That's not true. But you see, pain can override that, and it can override logic. What I've noticed with a lot of feminists, and what I've known with a lot of people who are in denial of father figures and have daddy issues, is that they had a bad experience with a father, an absence of a father, or just bad experience with a male figure that they looked up to, be it a family member, a relationship, or whatever. And because they're in denial of the masculine energy in a symbolic sense and physical sense, they also deny it in a spiritual sense. And if God is everything and he is masculine with feminine energy deep within, you're blocking yourself off from masculine things in this world and also above. But because of pain and trauma and not forgiving yourself or that person, you create a wall. And ironically, those things are very real, because even in a spiritual sense, you've got yin and yang, masculine and feminine. So completely to deny the masculine is a lie, because even in a non-biblical sense, with opposing forces, light and dark, yin and yang, well, that's still very real, you know? So I think that the denial of a father comes from denial of a masculine energy from a bad experience. So, long story short, she was all of those things, and she was also called Luna. She called herself Luna, but that wasn't her real name, so even that was a lie. And she surrounded herself with books and wanted nothing to do with God, because my dad abandoned me, or I had a bad experience with my father, therefore there can't be a spiritual father. Whereas with me, I grew up with a healthy father, and because of that, when I experienced a heavenly father, I was more open to it, because I knew my dad, and I love him, and he's been a good guy. That's why I know. And also just from counseling people online, I can see that they would really struggle with that because of the lack of a father figure, or a strong masculine figure. You know, daddy issues, basically. Psychological diagnosis. So that's something to consider in a higher sense, and that's another reason why a lot of these people, I think, are connected to a block with masculine energy and the father. That's why you've got this huge surge of feminism and divine feminine way of thinking, but it's still not balanced, because where you've got heart and mind, you've got yin and yang. Those forces need to be balanced, otherwise it's not grounded. And again, being diplomatic, you can attach it to yin and yang, and a lot of people believe that with New Age and spiritualism, and yet they completely deny the yang and say, oh, I'm just divine feminine. Well, that's not fair. It's also not real, in the sense that if you're just going to focus on one side, you're lying and saying the other side doesn't exist, which is biased, isn't it? So that's something to consider. So long story short, after four very painful years, or what I think was 4 very painful years, this person had an experience with God on Skype, and I felt a hand on my shoulder, and the hand left me and went on to the other side of the world, because we were long distance, and touched her on the shoulder, and she burst into tears, and she said, now I understand everything that you've done, and I never realized how real God was, and I didn't know how much God loved me. And she cried for 15 minutes. And at that time, a few days later, she denied it happening, because she didn't want to accept it, and that made her see the distance she had to recover. And the thing about when people wake up, they have to let go of their physical world. She ended up being in a place in a different country with a job, doing what she wanted to do, only to find out that maybe God had something better for her, but she had to let go of where she is, and she has to go backwards, find the right way, and then go forwards again. And it's hard, because with people's free will and stubbornness and ego, it's hard to admit that. It's not to say that you were wrong, it's bad to say that you were wrong, but what I'm saying is that what happens if God has a better thing for you, but you veered off course, thinking that I know everything, I only know myself. You don't know any more than yourself what happens if there's God. And through the entire relationship, it was just pain and blame. and this person saying that they were pure and perfect, yet they were gothic. I have nothing against goths, but what I mean to say is it's very opposing forces of a mask of white when actually doing and saying and embodying a lot of bad things and dark things. And I just experienced pain. And it's funny because she was somebody who came from the darkness going into the light, and the light was painful because I'd come from a loving background, whereas I had come from a loving background and I was experiencing pain and blame and attack and darkness from her. So it was like somebody who was blind and lost and in the dark experiencing light, and somebody who was in the light experiencing dark, and then she experienced God on Skype, and in my pain and being used as an instrument, she was saved. And in that love that I shared to her and God used me for, which he eventually came in and touched her on the shoulder because she was awake and open enough to it, woke her up from her blindness, which is a bit like what Christ did. She ended up blocking me. Oh, before that, Luna, thank you for this. You gave this to me. This is a bear covered in scars, as I was spiritually, and my surname, Bearder, my first name Corthan meaning to conquer, my surname Bearder means bear keeper or keeper of bears, or to bear and keep as in to hold. So yeah, she gave me this, which is a bear, which I now keep. So poetic, covered in scars. And she could have chosen any bear, and she had to choose one covered in scars. This is me. This is what happened, but I'm fine. And you see, still smiling, as painful as it was. Same thing that Christ did for us. This bear is called Patch. Symbolic. But you see, when I say these things, I say it both with my inner child and I also say it with my adult self, integrated. And when you've healed that inner child and you've accepted things, accepted possibly that's real, that's when you can have peace. And she now has peace and I'm grateful for it. But when she blocked me after coming into the light, she denied it happening, and she used an alibi and an excuse that I was looking at other women. And she gave in to gossip, and she listened to somebody who was fueling her darkness and the lies that she was saying to herself. And that's always something that happens when somebody is about to wake up, that when somebody wakes up for the first time, the darkness comes in to try and blind you again. I had that, and I wrote that in the book when I came to the Philippines. That when you wake up, you're still weak, you're not strong enough, and the darkness will try to hide you and block you and blind you and make you believe that the light is a lie. So she blocked me, believing I didn't love her, when actually I was there for her and helped her through so much for 4 years. The blindness can do that to you, and the darkness can do that to you. Long story short, it ended with her saying that she thought that she was pure and perfect, and for a very long time I thought she was a covert narcissist. I did all my research on that, and my intuition and my gut said it's still not true, it's still not correct. So I went through a year of healing and pain, and long story short, after a year of healing and pain and acceptance, and I sent her an email where I said, I forgive you, but I'll never forget what you've done. I hope you can forgive yourself and wake up. A year later, God has said to me in dreams and things like that, that she's finally woken up and she finally knows the truth. And I had to suffer, and in that pain, in that block, in that silent treatment. And again, if you are somebody who gives somebody silent treatment without them voicing themselves, that is very toxic behavior, and it's the sign of a coward, because you're only listening to one side of the story, and normally it's the side of gossip. and you're completely devaluing all the good things a person has done for you, all because of, again, this person had mental illness, so it's a bit hard. But I will say that if you are somebody who easily blocks people and doesn't allow them to speak, not only is that coming from a place of fear, insecurity and cowardice, it's also not fair on that person. Because if you find out that you overreacted and you were wrong, you're going to look stupid. But these are the kind of people that think that they're perfect and they have mental illness. So, what can you do? Please research borderline personality disorder. And Luna, even though that's not your real name, I forgive you and I hope you go towards God more. And that's it. I want nothing else with that. It was literally like a poetic shadow, everything that I wasn't. And it helped me to understand what Christ went through that pain and suffering. And if you have suffered also with somebody who had mental illness or has mental illness, in that suffering you can understand, perhaps in a bigger sense, the suffering of Christ on the cross in order to wake up somebody who was blind. That somebody being symbolically the world. Because like the story of the shepherd, the one sheep who was really lost and returned is more valuable than the 99 which are easy to get. Because supposedly that's what Christ did for us in a quantum sense and in a physical sense too. Deep, deep stuff. It's easy for people to say, oh, just deal with yourself, heal and everything will be fine. But those are normally people who only know themselves and think that they are their higher selves, or just logically only believe what they've seen and not open to anything more. Normally when people have a block to the spiritual stuff, it's normally that they've had a bad experience. Just like people who have a block to masculine and the possibility of God because of a bad experience with a male figure. What I've noticed is that it's interesting to see that yes, okay, it's trauma, they need therapy, self-acceptance and things like that, but it's also a denial, and that denial affects everything. That pain affects everything. In the same way you've got mind, body, spirit. Their mind is satisfied, their body, they may be physically fit, but they're spiritually unfulfilled, and they're also blocking themselves to something more. I suffered hell. I suffered hell with that person, and I constantly said to God, I am not your son, unconsciously, because I felt it symbolically as if it was being... We're all told to carry our cross, as they say in the Bible. I never knew what that meant, but I suffered in such a way. And ironically, that coming out of that person and that relationship and experiencing my shadow and how deep and lost a person could be through that person, that was more painful to me because it felt like thorns in my body. And it was completely spiritual and karmic and poetic and magnetic, like light and dark, yin and yang. I know how real it is because I felt it, and I felt the pain in such a way as if I was Christ on the cross, and I'm not Christ, and I'm not, but you see what I mean, in a symbolic sense. I could empathize with maybe that's real, because it destroyed me, and despite that, I'm fine. And I realized that that was connected to a deep part of me where I wanted to be the knight in shining armor saving the princess. And I did that with that person. And I managed to overcome that or conquer it. And I let go of that childish fantasy, and now I'm free. And that in itself, that ego, that dream, that childhood thing I was clinging to was also a block. And as much as I do counseling, I'm not doing counseling to save people now. I'm doing counseling to do as much as I can. And ultimately, a person whose name begins with J or why, has saved everyone on the cross. And maybe that's a real event. And it's even recorded in the Roman logs. If you look at things historically, it's been recorded in the Roman logs of people who were crucified. So, I have nothing else to say apart from I went through hell and I did everything that I was asked. I had the free will to not do it, but I got everything. And when I say I've got everything, it's not mine. The only thing that's mine is free will. Everything else was given, including my life and including what's to come. And because not only I sacrificed everything to do this project and come to the Philippines, and experiencing that person, God later told me that that person is now awake enough, and that's why I'm making this video, because you are awake enough if you're watching this. And despite everything, God loves you. And I'm now waiting for a hero's journey to come full circle, because me not being online for 5 years and doing this and being in the Philippines, which some of you know of, the only way that I can have peace and it can make sense is that the right person now comes, because I'm waiting on a promise for that. And God has already hinted who it is. And it will be a surprise. And it will be a blessing. And that's the thing about a blessing, whether small or big, whether it's a pet, whether it's a new person coming into your life, whether it's a job, or whether it's a new place or a new way of living. You wake up more, you become more yourself, you connect more with that inner child, and the blessing always has to be more than the pain. And that's why it's a blessing, because it heals the pain, and it's more than the pain. The pain might be 40%, but the blessing is 60%. That's what I mean. So I hope whoever's watching this, as I said before, I hope it blesses you. And God still loves you, Jesus still loves you, the Holy Spirit still loves you, and I love you. And there might be some of you who will go, I don't understand it, I don't understand you. You don't understand yourself to understand me, to understand what I'm saying. But as long as you're open, and as long as you feel that and what I've said today, I hope it points you in the right direction. And maybe it's biblical things, and maybe it's quantum, and maybe it's more than religion, and all of that human stuff. When I look at the world now, I don't look at politics. I look at spirit. And I know that in the future things will become a lot more crazy, but as long as I will say this to you, just look to the sky, because Christ is coming back in the sky one day. That's where you look to. Don't look on earth, look to the sky. And just read Revelation. If you ever read the Bible, just read Revelation, or go on YouTube and watch videos about Revelation. That's what I did when I learned about the Bible. I just read everything about Revelation. That's really the most important thing. And I made a sacrifice, and everything came full circle. And now whoever is supposed to come into my life will be worth the pain, and maybe for some of you it might be a big surprise. And at least I've told you in advance. And so much more I could say, but I've said so much already. And if you want to unsubscribe from me, unlike this, or leave a horrible comment, you can do that. I've lost friends in real life sharing this story. And I hope they wake up one day. And when I say that, I don't say it as some religious stereotype. Yeah, and you see why it's hard for me to say that, because I never considered myself a man of God. I never considered myself a man of the Bible. But I was open to the truth, and perhaps the truth is connected to those things. And I'm just so excited for what's to come. And I just will say, I hope you can get the book or listen to the audiobook when it's out. And just, we have so much to look forward to, because the world that is coming, this shift that is coming, is in Christ. And as much as the governments might try to do things here on earth, there's a spiritual quantum shift that's coming. And when everything is perfect and everything is said and done, it will be better than we ever expected. And that's it. Thank you for watching. If you watched all of this, please download the video. I've put a link underneath the video. Please share it with who you magnetically feel to share it with. And bless you. Bye. That's coming from my inner child, but also from my adult self. See ya.